Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to have you here today. My name is Cyndy McDonald. I'm an instructor for the UCLA Online College Counseling Certificate Program, and I do interviews with experts in our area to talk about subjects that are important to the students and the families that you work with, no matter where in the world you work. And today I'm so pleased and honored to have with me Lorraine Serra, who is from New York, right, Lorraine?
Yes, for sure.
Lorraine. And she is an expert in working with students on visual arts. So, welcome, Lorraine. I'm glad to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you again, and I'm thrilled that you asked to talk to me today. It's great.
So, tell us a little bit about how you became interested and how did you get into this kind of counseling with students and working with students in visual arts?
So my background before I started doing this work, which was around 2008, is as an artist and a designer, graphic designer, a business owner. I had a design company for about 25 years and a college professor. And I've always been an artist, designer, interested in the arts. So that's been my path all along. How I got into college counseling, I was thinking about this, and it was kind of the perfect storm at that time where, if you remember, the economy was starting to tank. I was getting very tired and bored of being a art director, creative director. I also got laid off from a wonderful consulting position that I had. My son was a senior in high school and studying abroad, which kind of left the whole college search uh, process to me. And he was my first child, so I had no idea of what was involved. And I started getting into it and starting researching for him very specific programs happened to be Japanese language and Asian studies, which at the time there weren't really that many. So I was thinking of what else I could do besides being an art director or continuing in that industry. So I was looking for something different to do. And I just kind of formulated this idea of why don't I start helping other kids who want to go into the arts in some way. I know that as a high school student, I didn't have that. I didn't have anybody to help me,
Mhm.
especially to put a portfolio together. And I ended up in a college. I had to pass up colleges where I was accepted because I didn't have a portfolio. So that
Mhm.
was all in the back of my mind. And a couple of months after I started thinking about this, I started putting a business plan together and talking to people and seeing if there was anybody else out there doing this. I realized I had the art part down, but I did not have the mechanics of college counseling. And I just happened to find the UCLA program. And it was like a Thursday or a Friday, and the next section started on Monday. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. So I did it, and I was working, family, all that. So I took one class at a time. It took me a year and a half. And that really gave me a good foundation. And in the meantime, while I was doing that, I was kind of subcontracting to some larger college counseling companies
Mhm.
just to kind of understand how the whole process worked and everything. And it just evolved from there. And now I have a staff of 12 consultants that
Wow.
work with me, essay and portfolio consultants, and it's going well. We're pretty well known in this little niche that we have.
You definitely are. And I love it that you're a UCLA extension alum. So here you are several years later, and so that's exciting. So
Yeah.
when, as an advisor, I have a student, and I've been a counselor, I've been an advisor for many years too, and I'll have students come in the office and say, I want to study visual arts, or I want to study, some particular type of major. What reaction should I have as a counselor?
I would ask them, I would try to figure out what their commitment to doing that is, because it really is a lot of work both to apply and to stay in a program. It's very time consuming and energy consuming. And there's a lot of competition for spots in good programs. I would ask them about high school classes that they've taken. Hopefully they've taken some AP classes, painting, drawing. If not, classes outside of school. I would ask if they've done any research into programs, if they've visited, sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Mhm.
What type of artwork they like to make is really important. Not so much what major do you want, because that comes later. Most of the art programs have foundation years anyway, first year. So
Mhm.
it's not major specific. So I would just find out what they've been doing, what they would like to do, and ask to see any artwork that they have, maybe a few samples, and take it from there. And also like to get a sense from the family that they will be supportive of a student who wants to pursue art or design, because there's some families really question, like, can their kid make a living doing that?
Right.
Uh, So I would just sort of really vet the student, talk to them a little bit about their ideas, talk to the parents, and decide there, if we'd be a good match to work together.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's important too. Sometimes I think students, it sounds like having that drive or that passion for art needs to come first. So do they have to have some artwork or something? Or is it something like, gee, I like this idea, but I haven't done anything yet? What's the difference between those two for a high school student?
Timing is really important for that, to answer that question. So if they're a sophomore, they do have plenty of time to develop a portfolio. If they're coming to us now, and it's right now, it's the end of July, and they want to apply early action, early decision somewhere in a couple of months, it's too late to start. They really need to have some background. So we try to meet students wherever they are. I've literally had students have stick figure drawings, like really, really beginning drawings, and taking them all the way through the process. But it takes time, it takes a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
if they don't, and they still, they don't really know what they want to study, I would probably direct them towards a BA program, like a more general studio arts program, where generally a portfolio is not required for admission. Let's start
Good.
there. Or a
Good.
program where they start where there's no portfolio required, and they can then move up into a BFA program.
Mm-hmm. So talk about the difference between a BFA and a BA, Lorraine.
Okay, so a BA program is a liberal arts based program. So you'll find those everywhere, liberal arts colleges, universities, not so much at art and design schools, but sometimes. Um, the BA is pretty general. So the major would be called studio art or just art or visual art. It's a broad introduction to all types of art. Sometimes there's an opportunity to specialize in one area or another. It's a smaller major. It's usually 30, 36 credits out
Mm-hmm.
of, say,
Wow.
120. So a student can double major um, with a BA, art major, or a major in minor. A lot more flexibility. Um, you can go on to an MA or an MFA in a graduate program if you have a BA in studio arts. The BFA, on the other hand, is about 2/3 of the whole program, studio classes. So 70, 80 credits, big major,
Mm-hmm.
takes things to a very advanced level, usually ending with a senior thesis exhibit that you do in your senior year. A portfolio is almost always required for a BFA and almost never for a BA program. So the BFA is a more professional route. The programs are more competitive and they're more specific. So you can get a BFA in, fashion design or packaging or 3D animation, pretty specific field. Where in a BA program, it's going to be much broader, and you won't find very specific areas of focus in a BA program. And BFAs are typically found at conservatory schools, art and design schools, and at universities that have a lot of offerings in art.
That have that concentration. So that sounds like the big difference between a BFA and a BA is the BA is more general. I can come in, maybe say I want to study this, but then switch over because it's still pretty general. But if I start in a BFA program, I need to have a much more clear understanding of what I want to study and what direction that I want to go, because the opportunities to change my major, change direction might be narrower.
Right. So another key difference is that the BFA program, as I mentioned before a little bit, does start with a first year foundation program. So you don't have great strength in drawing or 3D work or digital work. That's your time to really level up your skills in those areas, and then commit to a major usually in your sophomore year, beginning of your sophomore year.
Yeah, that's true. And that's very helpful for students too. And as you said, the opportunity to double major gives them, they still are able to pursue the art, but maybe combine that with another study that they'll be able to leverage later on too.
Right. A lot of students start off by saying, I want to study art, but I also want to study business or some kind of management or something. So that's a good way to combine those two things. You can double major.
So what's the difference between studying in an art school or a conservatory, in a BFA versus a school that is a more general and has the BA program where you're not just with art students? I think that's one of the biggest areas is you're only going to be with art students. Or if I go to a school that has a BA, I might have a roommate that's engineering or, a totally different major. So what are the plus or minuses for that?
Well, some students are very clear about what they want. I only want to apply to art and design schools. I only want to be in a larger, and it's really about the environment. So a big university can offer both a BA and a BFA. So you can get the same degree as you can in an art and design school. It's just some students want the big diverse group of students or a bigger environment, a bigger campus. Art schools are usually, with some exceptions, 2,000 to 4,000 students. They're usually in a city. There's usually not much of a campus. Some exceptions. Pratt is an exception in terms of campus. They have a nice green leafy campus. SCAD has, I think, 17,000 students now. So that's the exception. But most of them are really small, and some students are in high schools that are bigger than that, and they just want to be in a bigger environment. But you can get the same degree and the same opportunities in a university. Not too many liberal arts colleges offer a BFA program. Of course, there are some. So I think the main difference is environment, social opportunities, more clubs, more sports teams, more, outside of academics.
Yeah, and I think that's the key too. And I know in my work as a counselor, I have students who want to be immersed in that artistic environment that, they want to eat, live, breathe all of that. And other students want to have an opportunity to experience other things and have multiple experiences, as you said, the larger environment and go to the football game or, different things like that, which you probably don't have in in an art school. But then you also have conservatories in larger universities. So you can kind of have the best of both worlds, I would imagine.
Right. And also some families are very concerned about, public versus private, and they want to go in state. So it's ideal if one of their public institutions has an art school in it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Lorraine, what do you see in terms of careers? Your students that you worked with, what do they go on and do? Right? What kind of areas do they end up in?
They primarily end up in the areas that are connected to their major. Um, as far as I can tell from the students who keep in touch with me or that I track
Mhm.
down. The design areas are a little um, more not career directed, but I think easier to get an initial entry level job, and things in the digital areas, especially because those are big, evolving industries. So they've become costume designers, animators, uh, art directors, graphic designers, fashion designers, architects. It's great to find out that, so and so is on they're working for their second or third architectural firm, and they're rising up the ranks, and they've really done what they set out to do. And I think that's the most rewarding
It is.
part of this, right? Is to find out that the kids that you helped have done, are now successful in what they wanted to do. It's great.
It is. It is. So, what would be one last word of advice you would have for counselors who want to learn more about visual art program? Is there a website to go to? I know
Okay.
obviously visiting in person is always the best, but what are some resources? Are there organizations, national organizations? What's
It's
your go-to?
AICAD, which is the Association of Independent Colleges of Art and Design. I think it's aicad.org. You can search for colleges with specific majors, and it will give you a list and a little summary of what they offer and links to the college. Um, there are some industry organizations there. So there's fashion industry, there's an industrial design industry that has student chapters. Certainly for architecture, there's
Mhm.
the same. I would say in general, though, get out, go to museums, see what's happening. Read about art. And in terms of the students themselves, I would say be flexible and be committed to understanding them as individuals, because they're all different. This is not the type of counseling practice that can be cookie cutter. It's every student is different. You start at a different place. They want different services. They have usually pretty strong opinions and preferences, and they're individuals. So I would say focus on that. That I think that's the most important thing.
That sounds wonderful. And that fits in line with what we believe and the approach, kind of the philosophy and the ethics of, from a college counseling perspective, is that, it is individual and students do shine. It's so exciting to see their potential and everything blossom out and then to see them flourish. So that's a pretty exciting thing. Lorraine, thank you so much for your time today. This has been very illuminating, and I know everyone's going to appreciate having this little bit of insight. And I'll put links to these organizations in the show notes as well. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Cyndy. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and have a great week.